Hello, we're here with Miss Gayle Asali Dickson. How are you?
Fine. How are you doing?
I'm well.
Good.
Thank you
good,
so much for
good.
speaking to us today. So,
Thank you for asking to speak to me.
so Miss Asali, I was wondering if you could tell us a bit about your journey, where you were born, what type of context you were born into, your historical context, and just tell us a bit about.
I'm really getting pretty good at shortening the story, but I had to figure out, why did I join the Black Panther Party? So I had to look at my journey, and it starts as a child. How come I'm not raised up with a political parent who says, this is segregation, this is discrimination, this is this is that, the other. Mm-mm. I'm coming up in the 50s. I'm coming of young age in the 50s, and in the 60s I start moving towards adulthood.
And where were you when you were coming
I'm
up?
in Oakland.
Oh, you were in Oakland?
Yeah, I was raised up in Oakland. And so it's like between 7 and 9 years old when Eisenhower is about to be, or he's running, I think, for. I used to have this information just like that in my head, but if I don't review it, I don't have it exact. But when Eisenhower is running for president, he decides that he is going to sign a civil rights bill. Now, understand we've had 150,000 civil rights bills since 1875. They're all about civil rights, us being recognized, Black people being recognized as citizens of this United States. One has a little tweak here, we have voting rights. This one tweak here, we have housing rights. This one tweak here, we have education rights. But they're all about us being citizens. So anyway, he signs a bill, a civil rights bill. And my mother, I remember her say, why do I remember this? She says, I'm going to vote. Votes Democrat apparently most of the time. She says, I'm going to vote for Eisenhower because he signed the Civil Rights Act.
What party was Eisenhower from?
Republican. So I'm like, why do I remember that? Then there used to be a railroad track where I lived on 40th Street. It ran, and I lived opposite the Catholic church and school.
Was that in West Oakland?
In North Oakland.
North Oakland.
And it ran down the middle of 40th Street. It was a commute. It was the BART before BART. It was a real train. And in order to put more cars on the road, they gutted the train, only to do BART later on, but they gutted the train. And so in front of the apartment house that I lived was this mountain of dirt. And kids from down the street would come and play in the dirt because we're kids. Up the street would come and play in the dirt. And the dirt pile was in front of the Black people in North Oakland on the street where I lived. We lived in the middle of the block. We were not allowed to live in housing on this side or the other side of the block for the most part. And for the most part, in that section of the middle of the block and in the apartment house that I lived in were all single women with children. And so I lived in a fourplex. So there's children in each one of those units. We're all playing in the dirt. These guys are playing in the dirt. Everybody comes to the middle of the block where we are to play in the dirt. And they were white children and Black children, and we just played in the dirt till the lights came on, And so one of the children, His name was, I don't know if this, I should say this on, but anyway, his name was Ray. Sweet young little, he was a little boy, you know, and and Lana, she would tell me, you know, colored people aren't allowed in, we were colored then. Colored people aren't allowed in our apartment building. Well, now, as a child, there's no judgment on what is said. Either the one who is telling me this or me being the receiver of what is said. And it's like, oh, you know, and he says, colored people aren't allowed in our building. You want to go to the roof? And so we sneak and go up to the roof and we come back down. And it's like, yeah, we're not allowed. And that's what we did. And the same with Lana. She's like, colored people aren't allowed to live in our building. She lived in a fourplex like we did, only around the corner and down the street. And she's like, you want to come over to my house? I'm like, yeah. And so she was sort of what we would call like a latchkey kid, but she didn't have a key. So her mom, they lived on the first floor, and her mom would leave the window open in the back, and we climb up on the garbage can, and we go through the window, and we're in her house, and we're jumping on the bed, and then we come back out through the window and come back over and play in the dirt. I mean...
And a latchkey kid is one whose parents are working, and so when they come home...
Yeah. So the thing is my mother was a seamstress, and her mom would come over and get my mother to do some sewing for her. So the point I'm making with those two stories, that the story about my mother voting for Eisenhower and these children telling me that colored children people are not allowed to live in the housing. Why did that stick with me all my life? That memory is what I remember from my childhood. That's one of the memories that I remember from my child. It's a political memory. I'm not into politics at 7, 10 years old, but it's a political memory. And both of them. And as I grow and become, after graduation, start becoming educated to the society in which I live through the arts and through political activity that starts in 1966 when I graduate via the Black Panther Party that starts in Oakland. As I become aware and knowledgeable, these are when now in 2016, 17, 18, whatever, now I'm old, I reflect back and I'm like, why does that stick in my head? So now going back, now we have in the late 60s, you have what's called the Harlem Renaissance of the West Coast, meaning there's Black folks, Black artists, Black musicians and poets and writers and historians and sociologists and psychologists writing books, and politics. People are becoming aware of politics. I'm going to Merritt College, and the BSU, the Black Student Union, is the first Black Student Union is formed at Merritt College, and I'm part of Merritt College, the Black Student Union. And in 1968, little Bobby Hutton, who was one of the first members of the Black Panther Party, is murdered. And I am boycotting with my mother and my husband-to-be Housewives Market, because we're boycotting for two reasons. We're boycotting discrimination, and we're boycotting the murder of little Bobby Hutton. The connection is what I'm trying to make. The political connection that I'm totally unconscious of as a child. And then as I go into Merritt College, my mother is also going to Merritt College with me at the same time, because we were in an automobile accident, and the lady where she worked, my mother worked as a seamstress at a bridal salon, and the lady came out to see what damage my mother, how damaged she was. And my mother was disfigured. She had a scar on her face that went from her ear to her nose. And the lady, wasn't even fully healed. She still had packing in her nose, my mother. And the lady came and sat down. We had just bought a house. And maybe the lady didn't like the fact that we had a nerve to just buy a house. This is my retrospect thinking. And she says, I'm sorry, you cannot work for us anymore. You are too disfigured. Yeah. And so my mother goes back to school with me. She goes to community college at the same time as me. And we're listening to Malcolm X records, 33 and the Third albums of Malcolm X Speaks. We're listening to his speeches. She's taking African history and African liberation. We're hearing about African liberation fighters and freedom fighters, and there's politics that are just, we're becoming. I was very naive in high school. I graduate, and between culture and politics, the political awareness, I'm getting this education, this opening that's happening to me. And so my husband and I, we get married, and he's very much, he's from the South, so he is like, yeah, let's get freedom, And he wants to join the party in Oakland. I don't know this at the time, though. And they tell him that they're closed because there's been a lot of infiltration